post on YouTube too. But I'm really excited to have you on, Jen, today. And I'm just going to kind of share a little bit of how I met Jen and a little bit of my background with baby-led weaning, and kind of ask Jen some questions, who is the baby-led weaning whisperer, the expert. I have her book with me right in front of me too, so we'll pick somebody for that. And we're just going to kind of answer some questions that Jen gets often about baby-led weaning, and some of the common questions that I've been seeing more recently as I've been sharing about my journey with baby Callie. So first off, Jen is also a registered dietitian in Canada, and we've met years ago, and I think we did interviews before about baby-led weaning for the podcast, and then also for the Mommy Feeding Family program. That's kind of how we got connected in the first place, and then just kind of stayed in touch and met recently when we were in California, which was really cool. And so she is also a mom of 3, like myself. She's the author of the book, The Parent's Guide to Baby-Led Weaning. Your company is First Steps Nutrition, correct? And then the baby-led weaning program is Solid Steps to Baby-Led Weaning.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah, so my own experience, you guys know me, I'm a registered dietitian. I have 3 little ones. Isabella, who is almost 5, Tegan's almost 3, and Callie is 6.5 months. So we just recently started Solid Skin with her. And it's just funny, the difference from the first kid to the third kid. And Jen, I think you and I even talked about that when we saw each other in person, like how different things are from the first kid to the second, and then even to the third. How much you learn, how much more comfortable you are, how much science changes in just even a matter of a few years, what the experts are recommending for us. And so I think Jen has a lot of experience with this, and both of us really do, and just kind of to share with other mamas who are going through this. So with Bella, I made a lot of baby food, and I didn't really do many solids until I didn't really do any finger foods till she was maybe 9 months. And then with Tegan, I did a mix. I totally did some purees, but also right off the bat, she was having like whole avocados, and she was having ground meat, and she was having some fresh food that she was eating herself. And with baby Callie, we're definitely doing a lot more baby-led weaning. But I will say too, she has had some purees. She goes to daycare, and so at school she gets some purees. And I can tell some days she's hungrier and she wants to eat faster than she can with feeding herself. And so we've been doing some purees at home too. And so I think that I just want all moms to know, like, whatever way you're doing it, however you did it, first kid, second kid, third kid, it's all good, And so I think the thing that we know too, that Jen has a lot of information in terms of the literature, that how much, I'll let you talk about that, why we would want some babies to do baby-led weaning. But yeah, so Jen, how about you kind of kick us off with what baby-led weaning is, if there's any moms who haven't been familiar with that term, and why somebody would want to do it versus strictly using purees.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So baby-led weaning is basically starting your baby on solids with finger foods that they self-feed. So it's skipping the purees, it's skipping, feeding them with a spoon. And this whole concept and the name baby-led weaning came out of the UK and Jill Rapley. So, in North America, we tend to consider weaning as weaning from the breast. So I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in, but it's just a method of starting baby on solids. And why you would want to do this? Well, it improves your child's dexterity, like fingers and mouth muscles. The more they practice that with chewing, the quicker it develops. We think it can help produce more adventurous eaters, so less picky eating later on, because they're being exposed to so many different textures, so many different tastes right from the start. And then another piece about decreasing picky eating and helping your child grow up with a healthy relationship with food, which I love, is that the baby has full control. So while you certainly can, with purees, watch your baby signals and feed them responsibly. I find it's a lot easier to kind of, overfeed a baby. Here comes the airplane, or try and get them to finish the jar. Whereas when the baby's self-feeding themselves, they just, stop when they're full, and he has full control over their appetite and how much they eat.
Yeah, awesome. You kind of broke up a little bit there. I think you were saying just the last sentence, you said they just have full control of their appetite and they dictate how much they're eating, right? That's what you finished saying.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Awesome. And so what would you say, Jen, are some of the best starter foods for babies, and what's the right age?
So for age around 6 months, most babies will be ready to start solids and baby-led weaning. But there's some physical signs to watch for too. So of course, you want baby to be interested, although that's not, enough of an indicator in itself to start solids. They also need to have enough trunk and neck support. So they don't have to be able to sit on their own for 1 minute or 2 minutes, but they do have to be fairly stable when they're supported in their high chair so that they can reach out for the food, get it to their mouth, lean forward to spit it out if they need for safety. So they do have to have some strength as well. And as for what to start with, I always encourage parents to offer their baby a source of iron at each meal, just because babies growing so fast, so for their body and brain, the development needs quite a bit of iron. So that could be meat is the best source of iron if you're not a vegetarian family. So like a ground bison, I would make that into little meatballs or baby burgers. You can use a slow cooker or pressure cooker for things like chicken legs or ribs, because your baby will need a bigger piece that they can grasp onto at the beginning, or even like a chicken thigh or roast that you can shred, but it's still nice and tender. Eggs are a good starter food too, so I would just fry that and again slice it in strips so that they can grab it. If you're doing something like a bean or lentils, at first they're not going to have that little pinch of grass, but you can always, puree that into something like a hummus and spread it on a strip of toast. And you can use fortified infant cereals as well if you choose, and you can bake it into food. So for pancakes or muffins, I just sub half of the flour for the fortified cereal, and then you have iron fortified like pancake or muffin for your baby.
And Jen, you do a lot of getting families to feed the baby just what you're eating yourself. So moms aren't making 5 different
Yep.
things. They're making one meal and then baby is just eating pieces of that. So that's so for I'll kind of show like what I did for Callie is we just made crock pot chicken. And it was just a bunch of chicken breasts and I put extra butter in it. This was very lightly seasoned. You can speak to maybe how much seasoning you put on food for yours or kind of what you recommend for that. But for Kelly, I did very little seasoning in the chicken breast that we all had. And then I just added the seasonings later to hers, or to ours. But she pretty much just had the butter chicken that had a little bit of seasonings on it. And then I just like shredded up so she has like little shreds of it and put on her plate, and that's kind of what she loves chicken, and we did the same thing with ground beef with a little bit of pasta sauce in it, and it was super fatty. It was grass-fed meat, and so I know she's getting a lot of iron with that and also healthy fats too. I try not to do a lot of just fruits or just veggies and try to add some fat too, and some making sure there's some iron, like you said, with the meat or eggs or something there too.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect, and that's a
Question
good
about
point.
beans. Well, okay.
Sorry, there's a
So
delay. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. I have a question for you about beans and everything. So, let's say a mom's not starting this until the baby's 7 or 8 months, maybe, and they're ready. They have the little pincer grasps ready. So, about beans and even blueberries, parents are concerned about, or peas, things that are just small little, for anybody else, they'd be considered choking hazards. So, how do you, are you worried about that, or what do you recommend for moms for those cases?
Right. I always did just canned black beans with my kids. I would rinse them to get rid of any salt and put them on their tray. And if you're doing like a chickpea, it's pretty easy just to split in half.
Mm-hmm.
Something larger like a kidney bean, you can just like mush with your
Yeah.
finger pretty easily. Even the blueberries, because your baby's windpipe is about the size of a straw, if you think of a straw, so it's pretty small. So you want to consider the size of the food, but also the texture or how hard it is. So with something like, a really soft blueberry or a bean, they're maybe not the best size, but they're quite soft. So if they do happen to get past your baby's gag reflex, they're very likely to be able to cough it up or get, up on their own, instead of something like, a raw apple or a raw carrot, or some of those harder foods would be much harder for baby to get up.
Right.
Get back up on their own, so they're more of a choking hazard. So if you can think of like softer foods and avoid anything that could be perfectly round, like great dogs or sausages. Even if you have older kids, I like to slice into quarters, just anything that could be perfect and get caught.
Right, right. Good. Okay, cool. Now, how about how much and how often at first? And then some moms ask me, how then do you, well, let's just start with that question first. How much and
Okay.
how often at first?
Okay. So for how often, I'd probably start with 2 meals a day. I like to do breakfast, and then if you guys have a family dinner, that's a great time for everyone to be together, or breakfast and lunch, kind of whatever works for your schedule. And then at 9 months, you can add in a third meal, and then I'd hold off until snacks until about 12 months. The reason why there's the gradual increase in solids is because milk, your baby's milk, is still the main source of their nutrition. So it's kind of a balance. Like as they get older, they'll start to eat a little more solids and take in a little less milk. But at least for, until a year, the milk is still their main source of nutrition. And then for how much, that is really up to your baby. So I would start with small amounts so that you don't waste a lot, because a lot of babies don't eat much to start with. They play around with it and trying to figure out what to do with it. So start with a small amount, and if they're still interested, you can keep on giving them more, really until they're showing you signs that they're finished, which are pretty clear, right? They start to get fussy or throwing their food or crying. So
Right.
that kind of goes into the division of responsibility in feeding, in that the child or the baby is responsible for always how much or if they eat of the foods you're offering them at mealtime.
Right. Awesome. And some moms then ask too, as the babies, let's say they're getting close to a year and
Mm-hmm.
you've been doing baby-led weaning, or even maybe you maybe even started a little late, you didn't start till a little bit later. But when when you're again closer to like a year, so moms are just trying to wean from the bottle, or they're weaning from nursing, and the baby's eating more. How do moms balance that out with more meal times? And I think specifically, I can't think of who it was just posting this question. I think it was Barb was asking just the other day, how do I stop my feeding? Do I just stop the bottle and then just give her more at dinner time? Or kind of, do you have any recommendations for moms who are at that point?
Yeah, so around a year, there can be a transition to milk being more part of a meal
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, a snack or more of a comfort thing. Nursing, I always found, still tended to be kind of on demand, and there are other benefits to that, like, stopping them from crying when they're having a tantrum and all that. But if you're doing, bottle or a cup, we want to transition that to being at meals, max two, usually two, very maximum 3 cups a day at meals in an open cup if you can, rather than, sipping on the bottle of milk all day long, which really tends to fill them up, and then it doesn't leave any room in their tummies for other foods.
Right. Your program, your your academy, your program has good videos with you showing the cups and stuff and
Mhm.
examples. So for moms who want to check out more examples of what kind of cups you're talking about and how to do that, you have good examples in your program for moms for that stuff too. And you have good
Yeah,
examples too, like some of the utensils and stuff too. I think I saw there too. Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's always a common question,
Right.
utensils. And you can certainly start with utensils at 6 months. There are certain utensils that will be easier for your baby to eat than others, but yeah.
Right. Cool. Okay. How about things to stay away from? Honey, and well, that's what I don't remember who just asked this the other day when I was asking for questions. Um, most moms know is to stay away from honey. What other things should they stay away from? Maybe right off the bat, or maybe that first year.
Right. So honey can be a risk for foodborne illness until about a year, even if it's cooked. So of course it's a small risk, but we still say kind of avoid that. Um, Other than that, of course, the choking hazards, which we already mentioned briefly, and then anything that has lots of added salt or lots of added sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So your baby doesn't have fully developed kidneys to process a lot of salt. And then with the sugar too, we're not talking about the sugar in fruit or milk, but the added sugar, just because it doesn't come along with any nutrients. So it's kind of, again, taking up that limited space in your baby's tummy where you could have more nutrient dense foods. And we don't really want them to acquire a taste for super sweet foods either.
Yeah.
But other than that, really, I guess thinking of foodborne illness again, I would avoid, I think, sushi probably for, the first little while, or anything that could potentially be higher risk for causing food poisoning, just because, again, your baby is at higher risk, as are any of the elderly, because their immune systems aren't fully developed yet. But most other things are good to go.
Yeah, and so this leads to another good point that I think, there used to be the recommendation that we recommended babies wait until 2 years to have high potential allergen foods. So the
Mhm.
nut butters, even eggs for some people, those items. And so it's actually recommended now that moms start those earlier to delay or to possibly reduce their risk of um, allergies, that's scary though for a lot of moms. So, and I know even myself too, because baby Callie has some like eczema like skin, or it flare ups. So we, but it's important according to the research, and what we want moms to do is to start actually introducing that sooner. And that's why I think you did say, and nothing's off limits really, the things you did say. So how about, or can you speak to those allergens and how moms can introduce that stuff earlier on?
Yeah, that's a great point. When we had said years ago, just wait until 3 years to introduce peanuts, or 1 year to introduce egg whites, what that did was increase the incidence of allergies. So we know now that introducing them earlier might promote tolerance, like you said. So peanuts are usually one that a lot of parents are really concerned about. If your baby has a history, of allergies, or you're really worried about it, you could always rub a little bit on their cheek, wait 20 minutes to half an hour, rub a little bit on their lip, wait 20 minutes, and if they were quite allergic, they'd probably get a little rash. Or you might know already, because they do get little bits of allergen exposure through your breast milk. But you can have a little bit of baby Benadryl on hand, in case needed, might make you feel better. I know
Right.
parents that have gone to the emergency room parking lot and introduced
I do
peanuts
too.
there just because they're
Yeah,
so
I do
worried.
too. Mhm.
Yeah, but you can spread a little bit of peanut butter on a finger of toast if you're doing baby-led weaning. Um, mix it into a little bit of yogurt or cereal if you're doing some spoon feeding, just to give them some exposure, and then keep that up a couple times a week.
Yeah, awesome. And a lot of those foods too that I really try to, like I said, have healthy fats at all the meals too that Callie's eating. So a lot of, nut butters and seed butters and eggs are rich in healthy fats, and you're buying the healthier versions of those. And so I think those are something that moms also want to consider, is making sure that there's the healthy fats in their diet too. Kind of like you mentioned, so they're not filling up on just bread, but the bread or the toast, or even let's say like a waffle or something, but there's some healthy fat on there too, some substance in there too. And it's important for a baby's brain. It's important for a lot of things. So
Great idea. Whether you put like cheese on there, or butter, or hummus, or avocado, or peanut butter.
right, awesome. Foods to stay away from. Let's see, I'm just going through my questions that I've gotten from you guys. Those are a lot of the questions that I've been getting. Does anybody live has any questions? Or Jen, is there any big points that you feel like we should really address for the moms who are just kind of trying to figure a few things out right now?
And I think there was a question about foods to avoid, and then kefir.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Somebody
yeah,
asked
yeah,
about, yeah, which
yeah,
was an interesting question. I've never actually had that before,
yeah.
but I think any of those, foods with live cultures are great for your baby.
Yeah.
I know with like kefir or kombucha, there might be tiny amounts of alcohol in there, but it would be under 1%. So I think it should be safe, for your baby after 6 months. Of course, not in large amounts, but we're not feeding them anything in large amounts, right? We're giving them lots
Right,
of varieties. So yeah, I think
right.
that would be okay.
Yeah, and I would agree, and I would say the same thing. I mean, there's so much probiotics and natural health benefits to kefir, and that's a great source of probiotics. So I would say in small doses, and you may notice that a baby that age, it might make them extra gassy, maybe even constipated at that age with kefir. But that's the same with any new food. So I would just have moms kind of watch and see and how that they react, and try it again later time if maybe in a smaller amount if they do get extra gassy after something like that. Um, so let's see. And Julie just asked, what type of bread do you recommend? And Julie, I know you're keto. Should you still feed it to your little man? I would say give it a try. It's a great vessel, if you will, for like healthy fats. And I would do either a whole grain, or if you wanted to do a gluten-free bread. How about you, Jen? What would you recommend to that?
Yeah, so for bread, I would usually toast it because if it's just the bread, it can get a little gummy for them, and probably cut the crust off. Um, and whole grain is great. I'd probably avoid a super seedy one because it might be a little harder for them to get through, but like a softer whole wheat would be fine. And I think, there's still research going on and conflicting research about gluten and preventing celiac disease. But as far as we know, it is still probably good to introduce it earlier as well, just to get, your baby used to it rather than waiting.
Yeah, good point. And there's also we like doing like waffles and stuff too. So I think maybe they
Mm.
toast better or something. Maybe just the brands that I get they work better. Mine have just liked waffles better. But so I've done waffles instead of like toast with her. Just another idea for you, Julie. There's a lot of
Mhm.
different waffle options. So
Mhm.
yeah. Well, I would like to give the book away. Like we said, we kind of announced that, and Jen has a awesome book, which I'll share a little bit about too. Here, there's half the book, almost half the book is recipes, um, and then her online program. Or wait, let's give away a copy of the book first. Let's do that.
Sure.
Okay. How about Julie? You've been an awesome participant. I want to make sure that you get one, Julie. So Julie, if you just want to email me, I know you have my email, or even on Instagram, go ahead and send me your details. We'll get a book to you, Julie. And then I want to also let moms know about Jen's program, The Solid Steps to Baby-Led Weaning. It's a great program. I'll share the link below. But Jen, do you want to say a little bit about more what they can expect if they were to join the program?
Sure, yeah. So the link you'll share, Ashley, will be to register for a free webinar on how to get started with baby-led weaning. So we'll go into some of this in more detail. And then the online course um, I've broken it down into short videos with handouts so you can skip around or watch what you need to, but we cover in more detail a lot of what we covered today. So I show some choking hazards and the size of foods to offer, show the moms some iron sources. I have a video with a paramedic on there with a little CPR demo. Have videos of babies at various ages eating. So that's why I like the video because it's easier to show to
Mm-hmm.
show parents that. But yeah, it's everything you need for baby-led weaning, and I have a Facebook group for that as well, just for members to answer questions if they have anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, awesome. So Jen's a great resource for this. Her program's a great resource. Like I said, there are a ton of recipes in her book too. And I'll link to that. You can order it easily on Amazon, and also the details for the free webinar too. It's just, it goes everything in deeper. So I feel like we touched the cover of everything, the basis of everything, I think today,
Mhm.
and sharing with moms, I guess how to get started and how not to be scared of it. So I think that's why here too, when I was sharing about today, a lot of moms were like, I'm scared, I want to watch this. The baby led weaning scares me, or it kind of worries me. And I think it's because of the choking. But so I think this was a great, hopefully help moms understand that you can do this safely. It's not a big deal. I like it because, well, now with Callie, I have two older kids. And so we're busy, and mealtime makes me just sit down and call and like kind of slow down a little bit, but this kind of gives me a little bit more freedom. If I'm helping two other big kids with their dinner, I'm not necessarily sitting there with the spoon for 30 minutes or however long. Feeding, I have my hands free, and she's eating and playing with us, and she's really a part of mealtime with us. Um, so yeah, that's why I would love for you guys to check out a little bit more with Jen's resources. If you have any questions, go ahead and keep posting them here below. But I think, Jen, thank you so much for hopping on with us and answering all of our questions, and just, again, being here for us and all your resources.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, if anybody's watching the replay and has questions, just comment here and I'll come check back and
Cool.
can answer them later too.
Awesome. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Have a great week, and I'll talk to everybody later inside the group, I'm sure.
Bye.
Bye, guys.